Well, it looks like it's 6 o'clock, and we welcome you to the Midvale Planning and Zoning Commission of April 12th, 2023. We start our meetings off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'd stand and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we get a roll call?
Chair Lidke.
Here.
Vice Chair Erickson.
Here.
Commissioner Tippett. Excuse. Wait.
I haven't heard
Okay.
anything if she's
Commissioner Snow.
here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Benson.
Here.
Commissioner Kasparian.
Here. Thank you. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of March 22nd of 23?
Yes.
I looked at them. I didn't see anything that needed to be changed. Good job. Do we have a motion and second to approve them?
It's just an aye, isn't it?
Isn't it just an aye to approve the minutes?
Yeah. I move that we approve the meeting minutes
Do we have
on
a
March 22nd. All in favor?
do-
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved.
Thank you. On our instructions, it said we should have a motion and a second, and then any opposed. So we'll say that no one was opposed. The meeting minutes are approved. Our first item of business is Ezra Nuttall request a rezone approval for a property located at 610 West 7th Avenue from single-family residential to SF2 zone to a multifamily residential medium-density RM12 zone. And Liz will, from the city, will speak to us
Yes.
first.
Thanks. Okay, so this rezone is for a property not far from here over on 7th Ave and right on Rio Grande that cuts up through there. So you'll see on this exhibit, it's quite a large lot for the neighborhood over there. And the northern portion is currently zoned clean industrial. That isn't changing at all. They are just proposing to change the southern portion right along that boundary to RM12, which is a multifamily medium density with their plan is to eventually do a duplex. That does match zoning that is currently east of the property for across Rio Grande for the next two parcels. They are also zoned RM12. Everything else in the area is SF2 currently. Code is pretty clear when it comes to approving rezones. It actually discourages it unless one of these findings are able to be met, listed at the top. I think most of you have done rezones at this point, so it should look familiar. Staff analysis found that it was possible for the project to meet goals 1 and 3 about the environs changing and it being possible to encourage redevelopment. Additionally, the general plan lists opportunity areas and areas in the city where they anticipate changes in land use and the intensity of the land use. And so staff also felt that it could meet goal number 2, which was to preserve and support rehabilitation and improvement of nearby stable residential areas. So staff has provided a positive recommendation. We did receive 2 written objections that were included in your packet with some concerns about the project, and it looks like we probably have some members from the public that are interested in commenting as well.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Liz?
Do we know for sure it'll just be a duplex?
That's the plan currently. Yeah, I think they have everything ready to go for building permit after, so. But the applicant, I believe, is here as well, so.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay.
Any other questions for Liz at this time?
No, but we'll ask our attorney.
We'll have you come
Okay.
back up.
Thanks.
Is the client here? Yes. If you would come up and state your name, and don't be afraid of the microphone. Please speak into it so we can hear you better.
I'm Ezra Nuttall. I'm the one petitioning for this. The property would still be protected from being a large multifamily, even with the zoning change because of the size of the property. The largest multifamily that would fit would be a duplex, and that's what we have plans to build.
Are you demolishing the current building or just?
No, we're
Okay.
building an addition to it.
Okay.
To
You're adding on to it?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Do you have an issue with the one-way street? I mean, that was brought up in the objections. Do you?
No, because the parking entrance is all on the two-way street. Just the one faces the one-way. I don't see any problems with that.
Okay.
Yeah, when I drove by, the entrance, the parking would be through the east,
From the east side.
from the east side, which is a dual
A two-way. Yeah.
two-way, yeah.
Okay.
All right?
Any other questions?
No, we
Height-
may
the
ask
height
you-
of it isn't much taller than what's out all around. Yeah. Should be good.
Okay, great. We'll now open this for a public hearing. If anybody is here would like to make a comment, if you just state your name for the record and give us your comments.
I live on 7474 South Rio Grande Street. Me and my husband Max Ellis, I'm Carol Ellis, and we were concerned about the traffic, and that was because of what's going on down on Main Street on the corner of 6th. Then we were more concerned about more development, and that was in the area, and that because of property taxes going up, and so we were concerned about apartments or something more high density going up. And so that's what we were concerned about. And but if it's lower and just gonna build next door and be lower, then we don't have that much of objection. But I can see concern with apartment because traffic, because of 8th Avenue being commercial and the trucking and the density there with the traffic and that. So that's a lot of our concern because we have more traffic and that. So anyway, so that's what our, and if they did tear down the house that's on, that faces 7th Avenue there, on the corner of 7th there, and that, well, if they were going to tear it down, then that would involve, if they were going to tear it down, then concern about getting in and out of the street and that one because of trucks and that, because we only have stuff going on from coming over around from going from 6th and Main, coming up and around 7th, come back down again. And so anyway, so that's was our concern too. So anyway, since it's a one-way street, 7th Avenue is a one-way street, why? We just feel that we like a name. They were more family oriented, more lower density and that per se. So it's not that to have not as much traffic in that area because we only have enough with commercial. So anyway, so that's one concern. So I'm glad to hear that it's lower and that after all, because that's what we're concerned about and stuff, and then what it would mitigate. So anyway.
Great, thank you.
That's all.
Is there anybody
I have
else?
a question, is it,
If
can they
you'd
change
come
their
up to-
mind and build an apartment building there?
If you'd come up to the microphone and state your name and,
My name's Ken Peterson, I live on 7th Avenue. I was just wondering, can they change their mind, you know, now that it's rezoned and, build an apartment building there?
from what I understand, the size of the lot is.
It's small,
The
but-
largest they could put is 2 units, which is a duplex.
I mean, if they're leaving the house there and they're just adding on to, I see a problem with parking, but, I don't know. We were just kind of worried that they were gonna build an apartment building there.
Yeah, yeah.
With, you know, garage entrance on the bottom and something up on top. If it's just a duplex, I'm not that worried about it, but can they change their mind now that it's rezoned and go multi?
They could always put less. They could keep the single family there, but 2
No, I'm
units.
saying,
2 units is the
that's
maximum.
the max it can be, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a max, and that's what they're doing is the max. They can't go any higher than that. Even if they wanted to, they wouldn't be allowed to.
They could pick up additional property and do it.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of our question. We just was worried that they were gonna build, like right here, I mean, this thing's terrible. The traffic's, it's snarled the traffic in the neighborhood, and, you know, these apartments they're building right here. Didn't know about that hearing, or I would have been here, so. All right, well, thanks.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I can maybe add to this just a little bit. So the developer, has said on the record in his application forms and also I think probably in the meeting that they want to add on to the structure. If they were to change their mind, they would have to abide by the zoning that, is applied to the property.
They would have to have a rehearing or just.
So if the planning commission decides to change the zone tonight, and if that then gets picked up by the city council and is then approved by the city council, they would have to abide by that new zone. And this new zone, for this size of lot, only allows 2 dwelling units. So that could mean, like the developer said, or like the applicant said, that they are adding on to the home. It could even mean, it's a small home, but in theory, it could mean that the inside of the home is changed to accommodate 2 separate dwelling units. It could also mean that if they change their mind, they could, in theory, tear down the home and build a new structure that has 2 dwelling units in it.
But they can't have more than 2.
They cannot have more than 2, but in theory, it could change a little bit.
So there could be changes, but not in units. Thank you. If you don't mind, if the applicant would come back up, I have some questions for you.
Do we want to close the public hearing?
Yeah, we gotta close it.
Oh, sorry.
I move that we close the public hearing portion.
Second?
Roll call?
Chair Letke,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Tippett, Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
So the question I had for you is the concern, one of the concerns I had is how are you going to access the property to do the construction? The concern is the one-way street, and it is quite narrow and stuff, and so I think it would be nice to hear some assurances of how you're approaching the property with your construction.
Well, because we're adding on to the existing,
Yeah.
it'll be accessed from the east side. Our main supplier is the business right behind, on the other side of the fence, right there, L&W. And also we can come up 8th for any deliveries or anything like that. It's easier for us to access that direction anyway.
Yeah, it looks like that would probably be your best without tearing off anybody's mirrors
Right, yeah.
with some of the big trucks. So,
It's a wider street, it's two-way, yeah.
I mean, we have no authority over that, but we would think that would be very nice, neighborly of you to send them down 8th
Right.
and over, then to come down that one way. All right,
Any-
thank you. Anybody have any questions or any comments? Just sharing some of my thoughts, that area is a small community and single-family residences. So my first thought was I was concerned about making it a duplex, but it is right next to a zone that can allow that, and so that makes sense. But then, as I thought about it, the state's coming out with accessory dwelling units and allowing us to have that, and so whether we rezone this or not, there may be that option for an accessory dwelling unit anyways. So is that correct or close?
Yes.
So then it was like, well, it's almost kind of a moot point. We're just making it official through zoning. And it gave me a lot of comfort knowing that it can only be 2 units rather than trying to, because I know that area is going to be going through a lot of change with some larger density properties on Main Street. And so I would love to see that, the quaintness of those single-family residences remaining rather than being forced out because of redevelopment. And so that gave me comfort knowing that it can only be 2, and then that those who've made comments are more comfortable with that being the option too. So those are my thoughts, and so.
So why can't we just do duplex overlay?
Okay, the duplex overlay is only an option in the SF1 zone.
Okay,
So it's not even possible in the SF2.
okay, thanks.
Okay, great. Any other comments or? Do I have a motion to, do I have anybody who wants to make a motion?
I move that we recommend approval of the rezone located at 610 West 7th Avenue, consistent with the findings included in the staff report.
I second it.
Roll call vote?
Chair Lidke,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. All right, now we move on. Michael Edwards requests an amendment to section 17-7-1.
What do you read?
Oh, wait, sorry. I'm on the wrong one. Sorry, oh my goodness.
This is Ezra again.
Okay, Ezra, same person, Ezra Nuttall requests final subdivision approval to subdivide an existing property into 2 lots located at 610 West 7th Avenue. I was looking at my cheat sheet.
Yep.
That just seems to get me in trouble.
Okay. Well, this should look very familiar. And this is just a proposal to cut it right at the boundary where the zoning changes. And they meet all the requirements for the zone, so staff didn't have a problem with this and is recommending approval.
We need the applicant.
Any,
Could I get quicker than that? I don't know.
yeah. No, that's great. Any questions for staff?
Seems reasonable.
Does, would the applicant like to make any comments? We invite you to come up if you'd like to or not.
This doesn't really change a whole lot. Dividing it, it's already got separate zoning, and it just makes the properties completely separate. that also would further prevent anybody from doing a larger multi-unit there.
Which is what the neighbors like to hear. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I move that we open the public hearing portion.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody from the public that'd like to make a comment on the subdivision plat?
I move that we close the public hearing portion.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Chair Lidke,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
All right, do we have a motion by the commission?
Maybe.
Well, I will move that we recommend approval for the final subdivision located at 610 West 7th Avenue with the findings included in the staff report.
I second it.
Motion roll call? A roll call vote?
Chair Lidke,
Yes.
Vice Chair Erickson,
Yes.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Snow,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Motion passes. Thank you. And those who've come for public comments, we appreciate that you take your time out to give your comments. We appreciate that as a commission. And thank you for having the courage to speak into that microphone. Thank you. All right, now we'll have a discussion from our director.
Thank you. I will go over there to that mic and to the clicker,
If it works.
if it works.
Run.
Yeah.
I actually brought some props.
Did you bring anything to eat?
That was last time.
Yeah, that was last time. I was thinking about that, if we maybe set the bar too high last time. So anyway, but here are my props for today. I brought 2 keys. And you may wonder, what does this have to do with planning and zoning? You'll hopefully find out. So they're both pretty similar. I mean, none of these are electronic yet. This key has, is serrated just on this side. This one is on 2 sides. This one happens to be the key to my house. And this is the key to one of our bike racks. But essentially, they're doing the same thing. But this one doesn't fit into the house, and this one doesn't fit into the bike rack. So how does this relate to zoning? Well, it somewhat does. And the reason is that our zones are, they're sort of like tools for the city, so that we can ensure that the private sector, the citizens or companies who build things, that they do that in a way that everything ideally synergizes and gives us the city that we all would like to see. And today we are going to talk a little bit about the SF1 and SF2 zones. And these zones are very much like these 2 keys. They are really quite similar. They're just a little bit different, but really just on the margins. Here is you could say, the table of contents for the SF1 zone. And as a side note, if you look through our code, most zones have a very similar structure. They start with a purpose, they have a use table, then they have lot standards, development standards, and then it depends a little bit what you're looking at. It might diverge a little bit, but structurally they are all quite similar. The SF1 and SF2 zones are what most cities would call their large lot zones. You think about the east side of the valley, or if you go into Utah County, there are many cities that will have large parts of their city in single-family homes on lots that are maybe a quarter acre, maybe a third, maybe half an acre, maybe an acre. It really depends on which community you're looking at. So this in Midvale, our standards are a little different. If you compare, even just with our neighbors here, let's say West Jordan's large lot residential zone is 12,000 square feet. That's more than twice as much as our SF1 or SF2 zone. And you can see that we sort of overlap with West Jordan, but on West Jordan's very low end, and that's where we basically start. So this is just, every community has a different character, and it's borne out in its zoning. Now, the similarities and dissimilarities, like these two keys, the SF1 zone has, two somewhat unique provisions. It has the duplex overlay, which allows people to have a second dwelling unit on their lot. And if you look at the middle, the zoning map, the cross hatching on top of yellow, that indicates the duplex overlay. So this is not allowed everywhere, but in certain parts of the city. And the chairman mentioned earlier that the state a couple of years ago had come out with provisions for accessory dwelling units, and a duplex and an accessory dwelling unit are really quite similar. They oftentimes may look identical, but there are some aspects where they differ. For example, a duplex can be an investment property. The owner may live in Florida and owns a duplex in Midvale and rents out both dwelling units. When it's a home with an accessory dwelling, our code requires that the owner lives on the property. The owner can live in the larger unit or in the smaller unit, but they have to live on the property. So that's really the main difference. Getting back to the SF1 and SF2 zones, the SF2 has no duplex overlay. And if you think about it, the SF2 zone really requires less than the SF1 in many ways. The lots can be smaller, and if you deal with smaller lots, then the idea of having a duplex on that lot becomes less feasible, and also maybe less desirable, because then you may have a building that has a larger mass in a context where the existing dwellings are already relatively close to one another. So that's a little bit of an introduction to these two zones. Do you have any questions?
The pictures that you have shown, are those examples of SF1 and SF2?
Yes, and can you guess which one is which?
SF1 is the bottom one. SF2 is top.
Yeah, that's right.
What are you trying Tricky.
Yeah,
Pick
so
my
now
price up after the meeting.
I will have to say I rigged this just a little bit because when you, if you look back at the zoning map, we really don't have as much SF2 as we have SF1. And if you look at the SF1 areas, you have a variety of sizes. And in reality, you may find something that looks almost identical in both zones. But the SF2 has the potential for the lots being smaller. In these zones, there aren't any requirements that a lot can't exceed a certain size. It's just regulated by minimums.
The SF2 has smaller side yards and
Yes.
setbacks and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And
Yeah.
that's where our last one, where he wanted to change the SF1 to kind of match or reference SF2,
Yeah.
that it's the similar, and it's like, well, they're two separate
Right.
zones, and so it was a nice try.
Yeah, and and I heard that argument from all of you that yes, they may be similar, and yes, the SF2 zone may allow certain things, but there's a reason why these zones are not identical. So
So
any
it doesn't unlock the bikes.
right.
She brought it all together.
Exactly. Thank you.
You get a prize too.
Yes. So otherwise, I sent out an email earlier today. If any of you would like to attend the APA conference that's coming up in May, please let us know soon so that we can help you with registering. We do have funding for you to attend these types of conferences. The other thing that I'd also wanted to point out is that the Utah Land Use Institute just recently had a conference. I think it was just a couple of weeks ago. And they posted all of their sessions on their website. And if you like, you can stream those sessions, and they're really quite high quality. The instructors it's usually the property rights ombudsman and some people from the Utah APA chapter. And if you do watch any of these sessions on your own, please let us know, then we can count that for your continuing education. Otherwise, upcoming for the next Planning Commission meeting, we are going to have an open house that a consultant is going to run for us, and this is for the Fort Union and Center Street station area plan. And it happens to be at the same night as Planning Commission, so we thought we can advertise that as the Planning Commission meeting, and then you can come and give some public input as well and learn a little more about the station area plans. So that's pretty much.
Field trip.
Well, it would be a field trip to the DAR conference room. Yes. So, yeah. Anything else?
Questions?
Is anybody going to the first one, internal?
No, I'm not able to.
I mean, I've
I'd
kind of
like to.
considered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Won't fly.
Yeah, I could fly there.
If we fly.
What about the recordings? One or the other?
Recordings I want to do because I'll get double duty on my continuing ed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So are you asking about recordings of the APA conference?
No,
Or the other one?
second one, the Land Use
Yeah.
Institute recordings.
Utah Land Use,
I mean,
yeah.
would you recommend one above the other? Are they totally different?
I can do one in my pajamas.
Got you. Okay.
The Utah Land Use Institute conference is a little different. Its focus is basically on land use law. This institute was created, I'm wanting to say maybe 7 or 8 years ago by the legislature, just to help everyone who's involved in the development process to be, I guess, more knowledgeable about the state law that sort of wraps around the whole process. So the Utah IPA conference is sort of more general. It usually has classes in it that deal with land use law, but it also has all sorts of other things in it.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, you're
Do we
welcome.
need login stuff for the recordings?
Pardon me?
Do we need to run it through the city to log into the recordings, or can we just get on and,
You can just do it on your own.
okay.
And there's no paywall or anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, I was just looking through the bylaws and just on public hearings, it kind of gave kind of a course on it, you know, introduce it. The staff will present, then the applicant can present, then we open the public hearing, then those who'd like to, proponents of opponents can share their comments, and then we can have the applicant come back up and respond to those, and then the staff can come back up, and then we can close the public hearing after they've responded to that. Then also one thing Garrett we had talked about is when we close the meeting, we'll just have a motion to close it, and then we'll ask if there's any opposed. There's been times where someone hasn't wanted to close the meeting, not here, but in other places, and they closed it and they still wanted to discuss some business. So we'll kind of ask for any opposed when we make that motion. So just a few comments there. And with that,
I move that we close the public hearing at 6:38.
any opposed? All right, meeting's adjourned.
I mean, it was 37 and a half.
Shut up.
Thank you.